Well, grace and peace to you from God the Spirit, who gives us language to speak the gospel. Amen. Well, friends, languages have always fascinated me. Like how words and phrases are translated, how direct translations don't always make sense, how languages are related, like Spanish and Arabic. Words like azúcar, sugar, in Spanish, related to sucre, sugar, in Arabic. Or during my time in Malaysia, I would hear the phrase, boleh ba kalau kau. It literally means can if you. Direct translation. But could be used in any situation to say, of course, or yes, or you can do it, like a motivational phrase or an encouragement. For example, I don't think I can do that. Boleh ba kalau kau. You can do it. Or think about our theme for today. Are you lit? The word lit is slang. If you think about it, slang is kind of like another language. Lit rose in popularity about 5, 6, 7 years ago. You might hear someone say, "That's lit." I wouldn't say that, but you might hear someone say that, and that means that's cool, or that's awesome. I've been thinking a lot about languages this week, learning new languages. I remember learning Malay in the first few days after arriving in Malaysia. I flew to Malaysia with no knowledge of its language, Malay. I brought a phrase book and barely cracked the spine. You see, I was nervous about trying to pack another language's vocabulary into my brain, even though our teacher reassured us that Malay is an easy language to learn. Well, I found it frustrating to learn Malay because I studied Spanish in school. For some reason or another, the two languages would swirl around in my brain. I would often respond to Malay with Spanish. I got a lot of confused looks on the street. In the end, I learned a little bit of Malay. I could order lunch. I could haggle a bit. But conversational Malay was never in the cards for me. Have you ever tried to learn a new language? It's a slow process, right? It requires patience and practice, a willingness to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, giving ourselves grace to try something new, being curious and asking questions if we don't understand. Learning a new language also involves a lot of listening to a teacher and repeating after her, listening to learn a new word or phrase. It's pretty clear I've been thinking about all of my experiences with new languages this week. It's Pentecost, after all. And in our story today from Acts, the apostles are gathered together in Jerusalem to observe the Jewish festival of Pentecost, a festival to celebrate the harvest. When suddenly the Spirit descends, blows into the room like a violent wind, and the Spirit empowers and inspires those gathered to speak new languages. And they speak new languages in order to share the gospel, to speak the gospel. They are given words to connect with others who they ordinarily wouldn't have been able to connect with, to communicate with. God is connecting people in new ways through the inspiration of the Spirit. The Spirit literally gives them languages to speak across what ordinarily would have divided them. Because remember, friends, these are people from all over the place, from most of the known world at the time. I want you to look at this map and see how different these people and places really are. And yet the Spirit gives them the ability to speak the gospel. This is a moment when they can speak across divides of culture, ethnicity, age, gender, and politics. And isn't this something we could use today? The ability to bridge divides, the ability to connect and communicate with others. I began to wonder this week, is this a time for us to learn a new language from the Spirit? Could the Spirit be equipping us with a new language to become bridge builders for the sake of the gospel? What tools, what gifts could the Spirit give us for this calling? Well, I mentioned some of them at the start of my sermon. Patience, practice, curiosity, grace, and the ability to listen. When we learn a new language, we need these things. And the same is true for us now as we seek to speak the gospel and bridge divides. Patience, practice, curiosity, grace, and the ability to listen. Maybe you've heard or used the phrase, "You're speaking my language." We use this phrase to say, "You understand me." You get what I'm saying, right? What might happen if we tried to speak another's language, sought to understand another's perspective? What might happen if we practiced a little more patience with one another? What might happen if we led with our curiosity, asked questions when we didn't understand? What might happen if we gave grace like God does? What might happen if we listened a little more than we talked? Listen to understand, not to respond. I wonder, might those divides grow a little smaller? Might we connect and communicate with people in new ways? Might we see and hear God at work among us? The Spirit is here, friends, calling on us like those gathered for Pentecost thousands of years ago. That was a moment for change. That was a moment for a new language for sharing the gospel. And guess what? Pentecost is still a story for now, for this moment. This is a moment ripe for change. This is a moment that desperately needs that new language from the Spirit. It's almost like you can hear the Spirit whispering, encouraging us. Boleba kalaukau. You can do it, the Spirit says. Amen.